And does it work?
Yeah.
Yes. So now we come to the last but not least, final presentation, Lekab.
So then, hello again. We are Sebastian, Ann-Kathrin, Daniel and Gian, and me, Aline. And we want to give an overview about car lease. First I want to give you a short introduction. Then we will go to the method, come up with the results and the analysis, and finally to the recommendation and the conclusion. Yeah, the introduction. We were concentrate ourselves on the car leasing because we were wondering about the fact that the car lease is more and more common in other European countries, but not that much in Sweden. So we were interested to research the reason why. In the following, I want to explain the advantages of the leasing and want to explain also how the leasing stuff or leasing business is work. Regarding to that eternal triangle. On that triangle, there are three contracting partners. We have the customer, the seller, and the leasing company. The customer is the person who wants to use the car, and he goes to the seller and negotiates the selling prices or the installing of equipment. And then the customer can choose a car. Between the leasing company and the seller is that they, the leasing company finance or buy a car from the seller, and then the leasing company becomes the owner of the car. The customer and the leasing company, they conclude the leasing contract, and then the leasing company allows the customer to use the car for a fixed date of time. So, the advantage of a car lease is, for example, that you have a better cost distribution and a more flexibility, because the rising costs are evenly spread out over the term of the lease, and you have to pay not that much money per month. Over that, you can also buy the vehicle after the leasing contract, and then it's your own car. And the leasing company itself is a big purchaser and can handle out better contract conditions for insurances, for example. Then the advantage for Lekab, it's our company, is also that with students, they will increase their residual clientele, and the customers agree within the contract that the car must have a high residual value in the end of the contract. That means that the car is relatively new, and Lekab can resell a relatively new car to other customers again. So the leasing is a great option for those who like lower payments on a more expensive car, and who like also to drive a new vehicle every few years. So, and I'll give it to you.
Before we start with our practical part, I would like to give you some more input about our method we took. Means and chain theory is based on the fact that consumers think about product attributes subjectively in terms of personal consequences. This model, like we have already seen in the first presentation, shows the 4 levels best. First, the attributes, which stands for collecting concrete and abstract characteristics of a product to define individual attributes, for example, eco-friendly cars, and these attributes lead to the functional consequences of user. Next, the functional and psychosocial consequences, which determine the functional, social, or psychological benefit components and performance consequences for the individual consumers, like to save petrol. The most important thing is the value, which establishes the essential relevant quality system, for example, quality, environment, but explain the reasons for the behavior and decisions for with consumers. There are reasons for all consequences. Next slide is our method, how we get our results. We have chosen this method for our qualitative research because it is commonly used to analyze and understand consumer behaviors. There is reason to believe that most of the Swedish students, our target group, don't know a lot about the leasing system. So our aim was to find out the reasons why students not even consider to lease a car, and in addition, how the system needs to be improved to get more attractive for our target group. So what we did is we prepared a questionnaire and added some lettering questions in addition to quantitative questions. When we had the idea we wanted to do something completely different and said, okay, we're not going to go to Lekab and ask the consumers who enter the store, so we just go to Karlstad's driver schools. We thought this might be a good idea because there are a lot of people who are definitely interested in cars, and probably there are some who face the fact to buy a car or maybe to lease a car in the near future. Because we thought many Swedish youths don't know the opportunity to lease a car, we started to point out the main facts first in a small introduction about the leasing system, like Aline did for you before, and afterwards handle out the questionnaires. But we also made some face-to-face dialogues after the lesson to get more qualitative answers.
We now move on to the results and analysis part of our study. Next slide. So as mentioned by Annika, we've actually partnered with 2 driving schools for this study, and most of our respondents are predominantly fall within the student age bracket of 20 to 23, which is like 70% of the respondents. So more or less they have little or no disposable income, but we have to remember that these students could be on loans or could apply for student loans. And since they're into driving schools, they are most likely new car users or will be new car users. We also had slightly more males than females, about 60% versus 40%. And it's interesting to note that there's actually a high awareness of leasing, which means that this is not an entirely new concept for the respondents. Despite this high awareness on leasing though, there's a low proclivity on leasing. When we asked them like if they ever thought about leasing cars, a whopping 93% of them said no. So it could only mean that they do not want what they know, or they know little about it, or the knowledge that they have is on the surface level only. And another challenge for car leasing companies is that the willingness to pay falls outside the actual lease rates. Because when we've asked the Lekab, and the cheapest rate that they've got is 1,800 krona, and about 56% of the respondents, their budget is only 500 to 1,000 krona. So that could be a challenge for Lekab.
Okay, the next attribute we asked about was the running time of the contracts, and 90%, so the majority said they would sign long contracts instead of shorter contracts and pay less money a month. Next one is the brand preference. We asked which brand the respondents would prefer to lease, and most of the people said it's Audi, which is a high-class brand, and that surprised us a little bit. And the reasons why they would lease a car which has such a quality, the reasons, we asked about the reasons, and it was we give the possibilities: quality, image, TV advertisement, and price. And most of the respondents said it's the quality that is the main point why they lease a car. And the next question was about what do you think of leasing? Do you think leasing is a future opportunity for Sweden or for this company? And most of the people said no. There's no possibility. In the summary, we can say there is a high brand awareness, but people don't believe really in the leasing system, and that's quite surprising.
So, we have a recommendation and conclusions that are based upon these questions. And the recommendation that we have now is that LEKAB should use the time, and with this might be a little strange recommendation to give since time is money, but we do see, according to these questions, that the Swedish youth really need some time to mature to the fact that leasing is a good alternative. In the other way, LEKAB wanted to actually find a new segment, a new target group, and they really want to interact with the young here. And we thought that maybe in some cases you use the opposite. You attack the parents or the grandparents that might have a little bit more knowledge when it comes to owning a car, and could also maybe see the benefits in the leasing. So by that, we also want them to LEKAB for one special set, follow important steps in the average youth life, which will be that to be interacting when it comes to maybe field hockey, football, etc. So they're always around. Driving school is also, of course, since that is where we carried out the basic questions. But also now a recommendation would be to get involved with the target groups. Maybe not to target them for actually selling a car, but to target them to show them that they are where they are. And with this we had in mind to guest tutorials in schools, universities, or external events, which has nothing to do with the actual car concept, just showing that we are here and we know leasing, which is also the future scenario for LEKAB. We know leasing. With these conclusions, we have that do not pursue the youth. That's the primary target. You should instead be the secondary target, because they will eventually buy a car from you if you are around, if the awareness of the brand LEKAB is there. And by this we mean that using this learning by doing, that in this case is one of the reasons to why youth do not use leasing or are not attracted to leasing. We are learning by doing. We are buying our cars in Sweden. If we get the parents to lease their car or the grandparents to lease the cars, the youth will of course see that this is a normal thing to do. So as we said, parents, grandparents lease, the sons and the daughters will too. And by that we're done. So thanks.